Hello, my name's Beeton. This is a short film which will take you through a painting project of mine titled 10 billion years on a flat surface. Here is the first part of the painting. It's about 6 meters long. It's called 590 million years on a flat surface. The work consists of 11 panels. Each panel represents a period of geological time. 1 centimeter represents 1 million years. But my work is not another chronological illustration. To create this work, I developed my own painting methodology based on sedimentation and erosion. The last panel is 3 centimeters long. The few millimeters at the end of this panel covers the whole of human civilization. 2 graphs flow intermittently through the work. One represents the fluctuations in the mean sea level through time. The fluctuations in the mean global temperature through time is represented by the other graph. To understand what the painting 590 million years is about, we consult a geological time scale. You can see here the different periods of geological time from the Paleozoic up until the present day. Each one of these periods is a panel in my painting. It's easier to see if we turn this geological time scale 90 degrees. Here you can see it on its side, and you can see how my painting 590 million years fits into the geological time scale. Through the different periods we see the Cambrian, the Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian period, which is the Paleozoic, that's early life. At the end of the Permian there's a huge extinction, and we see the rise of the dinosaurs in the Triassic, crescendoing in the Jurassic, and Cretaceous. Those 3 periods, the ones in orange you can see, are the Mesozoic. That's middle life, time of the dinosaurs. At the end of the Cretaceous, an asteroid hits the Earth and the dinosaurs become extinct. And through the Cenozoic, we see the rise of the mammals, Tertiary and Quaternary. Later on in this film, I will take you through a detailed guided tour of my painting 590 million years, where I'll talk to you about the influences on my work, such as the ancient Chinese landscape artists, the Impressionists, Cézanne's idea about creating a painting which covered a bracket of time, and how I developed my painting style which mimicked sedimentation and erosion. I'm now going to show you the exhibition space which I will build, which will house 10 billion years on a flat surface, 1 centimeter representing 1 million years. Here you see an image of me standing next to my painting 590 million years on a flat surface, but as I said, it's a small detail of 10 billion years on a flat surface. Here you can see an image of somebody standing next to 590 million years. They've walked into a room, and this room depicts the whole of this 10 billion year period of the approximate lifespan of the Sun. Here we can see a topographical view of the whole room. Up in the top section you can see that little figure standing next to 590 million years. There's about 16 panels in all that are 6 meters long, and another 2 panels that are slightly smaller than that comprise this whole deep time story. So if we look at the image as a whole, we can see the birth of the Sun at the direct base of this image, moving clockwise through time. There's the formation of the Earth. We go through the various large brackets of deep time history, and this painting will tell the whole story of those various brackets of time, and eventuating, of course, in the present day, which is where the figure is standing. The actual entrance is the present day, and then again moving clockwise along, we move into the future. The future is slightly more predictable than you would imagine. Given the shifting plate tectonics, we can tell something or a little bit about the types of environments, future environments, to a degree, but the vast majority of it is, of course, an impression. And finally, we end where we begin, which is, as you can see, the death of the sun. In this slide we can see, from the point of view of somebody approaching this exhibition space that I envisage that I will build in the future. Directly ahead of us is the two smaller panels. On one side, on the right hand side, there is the birth of the sun and the early formation of the solar system, the very beginning. And on the left hand side, the other small panel that you see is the death of the sun. So we move 5 billion years into the past, or approximately, to see the origin of the sun, and we move 5 billion years into the future, approximately, to see the death of the sun. And interestingly, we exist approximately within that middle bracket. We are orbiting a middle-aged star. In this image we can see the sun setting. If the room was constructed directly east-west, then at a certain time of the year, at the entrance with the sunrise, you would see the sun spilling into the exhibition space, and likewise at sunset the sun would set as a shaft of light would beam into the room. On the right hand side the viewer would see the birth of the star, our sun, and on the left hand side the viewer would see the death of the star, which is our sun, and directly between the two the viewer would see the sun setting and a shaft of light panning across the room. The painting that I'm currently working on is titled 1200 to 590 million years on a flat surface. When it is completed, the painting in its entirety, that is including the 590 million years on a flat surface, will be titled 1200 million years on a flat surface. This innovative diagram maps out the changes that have taken place in the Earth's atmosphere from 4.6 billion years ago to the present day. It's an example of the type of scientific information that I make visible through my art. The yellow section that you can see on the far right represents the bracket of time that I cover in my painting 590 million years on a flat surface. The brown section next to the yellow section is the bracket of time that I am currently painting, 1.2 billion years to 590 million years on a flat surface. The painting encompasses several periods of geological time. The first is the Tonian Period, dating from 1200 to 1000 million years. The second is the Tonian, dating from 1000 to 850 million years ago. The next is the Cryogenian, dating from 850 to 635 million years ago. The last is the Ediacaran Period, dating from 635 to 542 million years ago. Some of the Ediacaran Period is covered in 590 million years on a flat surface. I'm now going to take you through the artwork in a series of short films. This first film looks at 590 as a whole painting, covering briefly the Paleozoic, Mesozoic and Cenozoic. Hi, my name is Beeton. You're looking at my artwork titled 590 million years on a flat surface. As I've already explained, it's but one detail of the entire work that I'll be creating, titled 10 billion years on a flat surface. But this short film is going to talk to you about some of the aesthetic ideas behind the work. As a foundation element to the work, there's the science. 1 centimetre to a million years, each panel is a different period of geological time. So the first thing I had to do when I conceived this work was think about what style of painting am I going to use, what do I want to evoke. So thinking about 1 centimetre to a million years, I knew I needed a painterly style that spoke aesthetically of the sense of a flow of time. The ancient Chinese landscape artists were influential here. They talked of this idea of the ink flows and the brush follows. So part of the concept was that notion of capturing poetically this idea of time flowing across a surface. Also influential to me was the work of the Impressionist painters. They captured light, they captured a sense of motion in their work. Indeed, one of the foundation artists to this movement was Cézanne, and he spoke about his painterly strokes, the way that he created his surfaces being a sense of evoking a bracket of time, paint being in a sense a medium to span motion through a bracket of time. So in talking about deep time here, we're looking at a type of aesthetic that poetically transcribes, if you will, a notion of huge expanses of time passing. This next film focuses specifically on the Paleozoic. The Paleozoic is the section that you can see with the blue line running across the top. Here you can see the Paleozoic in further detail. This number of panels that you're looking at represents the Paleozoic, which is the early life, multicellular life at least, comprised of the Cambrian initially, followed by the Ordovician, and these two periods are the time in which life only really exists in the water. It's only following the Ordovician and the Silurian that life really gets a foothold on land. Following the Silurian we have Devonian, the rise of the early fish, Carboniferous, the first really major fossil forests, where the oxygen levels were much higher than they are today. You had spiders the size of your head, dragonflies with metre-long wingspans. Following the Carboniferous we have the Permian period with the major extinction event, where we see approximately 95% of all life dying out. You can see through the work the aesthetic that follows the notion of the ink flows and the pen follows. Throughout the work there are two graphs showing the mean sea level, that's the average sea level, and temperature of the planet. So in the same way that I'm painting with the idea of an aesthetic surrounding sedimentation and erosion, the graphs themselves are in a sense embedded into the work and at times have an appearance of landscape. Also throughout the work are small detailed drawings, and across the top of the whole work is a sequence of small illustrations that look at the chronology of the various appearances of different forms of life through time. So in one sense we have this chronology of life along the top, and throughout the work we have a far more poetic description of, say, the bodies of animals, plants, all forms of life are the banks of these rivers, and these rivers are rivers of DNA that flow through space and time, eloquently put in Richard Dawkins' book River Out of Eden. This next film focuses on the Mesozoic. The Mesozoic is middle life, the section in orange. Here you can see a closer detail of the Mesozoic. These three panels that you can see is the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous. It's called the Mesozoic, and we know it as the time of the dinosaurs, middle life. There's probably more colour in these ones than a number of the others. Perhaps one of the reasons is that I've always been fascinated by dinosaurs. Other things happen though as well. The flowering plants, you can see at the end of the Cretaceous panel a number of illustrations of flowering plants, and the Tethys Sea in the Triassic. Again, that ephemeral type of quality is very important in these works, this idea that the ink flows and the brush follows. Sedimentation and erosion are made visible through paint. This next film looks at the Cenozoic. The Cenozoic is the section with the green banner running across the top. Here you can see the Tertiary and the Quaternary period. It's the rise of the mammals that we're looking at. This point here, an asteroid hit the Earth and ended the dinosaur reign. And it's also interesting, in this Tertiary period we see the real proliferation of bird life as well. And of course, right at the end, in this last 3 millimeters, we can see the entire history of the human race as we know it. A fascinating time in the sense that this is the first time that we've ever seen the proliferation of apex predators such as humans. We are indeed in bloom within the tree of life itself. Again, the painting style referenced the flow of time across the surface, the ink flows and the brush follows. Also, we've got a number of seed-bearing plants in here. This line is one of the graphs that appears intermittently through the work, where we're looking at the mean sea level and temperature of the planet. As you can see, it's been much higher in the past than it is today. This next film looks at my painting titled 1,200 million years to 590 million years on a flat surface. The first film will broadly cover the entire breadth of time that the painting depicts. You're looking at the painting titled 1.2 billion to 590 million years on a flat surface. It's the second chapter in the work 10 billion years on a flat surface, and it's in process. It's something that will take shape as I continue working on it. I talked a little bit before about this process of sedimentation and erosion in paint. So the concept here is to build up a painting to a point, and Brett Whiteley talked about at times violating his paintings. He'd build them up to a point where they needed to somehow be violated, and there's a lot of that in this kind of work. Sometimes I'll build up details and I'll pour a layer of paint across it, then I'll rub back again and I'll build it up again, following that idea of sedimentation and erosion within the work. And as you can see, in some places there's pencil drawings and details. It's a different kind of painting to 590 in one respect, and that is the only life that exists is microbial life. It's a much older bracket of time. The main event that happened was these huge global ice ages that took place, at least two of them. So again, the aesthetic is in paint about the ink flowing and the brush follows. Again, that sense that through time, using paint, we can bring an impressionistic, poetic, which is in a sense a form of spirituality, to time and our position in deep time. This next painting looks at the period titled the Tonian Period. The panel that you're looking at is called the Tonian Period. The Tonian dates from 1.2 billion to a billion years ago. One of the interesting things about this time was that it saw the laying down of many belts of polymetamorphic rock. So you can see these drawings reference that to a degree. Yeah, the painting is an extremely early stage. It's got many more layers of paint to be built up. So it really is about looking at those major events that happened. One of the events that I'll be painting into this work is the formation of Rodinia, the supercontinent. It's where all the continents were joined together, and it was possibly the first supercontinent ever in the history of the Earth. This next painting looks at the period titled the Tonian Period. This work in progress is titled the Tonian Period. It's the first period of the Neoproterozoic. Interestingly, in this time we see some of the events that lead to the breakup of the supercontinent called Rodinia. Still very arid, there's no life on land. This next painting looks at the period of time called the Cryogenian Period. This painting in progress is called the Cryogenian. It's a period from 850 to 635 million years ago. Most importantly, during this time, we saw two major glacial events. It's quite possible that the ice actually covered the entire planet all the way to the equator. They were called the Sturtian and the Marinoan glacial events. You may have heard the term snowball Earth, which you can imagine from the moon, the Earth quite possibly would have looked like a cue ball, perfectly white, covered in ice. This next painting looks at the period of time titled the Ediacaran Period. This panel represents a bracket of time from 635 to 542 million years ago. It's called the Ediacaran. It's named after the Ediacara Hills in South Australia, where we find these very early multicellular forms of life. It's a very exciting time leading up to the Cambrian Explosion. It's the last period of the Neoproterozoic, and following this is the Cambrian, which is the first period of the Paleozoic. Another fascinating thing about this period of time is that we see that whatever it was that was the catalyst for this major explosion of multicellular life was hidden in this Ediacaran period and the period prior to this that saw the major glacial events. These short films and still images document the work in progress titled 1,200 million years to 590 million years on a flat surface. You can also see a number of the sketches that I've done for these paintings, as well as diagrams that I've collected. The last images you'll see in this film are close-ups of my painting 590 million years on a flat surface.